Hey Apex Agents, it's Mobius Y here with another video for Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer. So as always with my character build guides, this video is technically part 2 of today's Human Vanguard character build set of videos. So this video is strictly gameplay using the exact setup and loadout that I went over in the previous video, which I will link in the description below. If you want to see exactly how I set this character up in this very video, even straight down to the weapon and weapon mods that I used, just check the description below. There will be a link to the actual character build guide where I go over the skill tree and my allocation of skill points, as well as my choice of weapon and weapon mods and the booster consumables. So for this match, we wound up against the Ket on Firebase Derelict. And while the Ket are not as good as Outlaw for playing a melee-centric Human Vanguard, they're definitely better than Remnant. The only reason the Ket are slightly worse than the Outlaw faction is because the Ket have two sync kill boss units. Both the Ket Fiend and the Ket Ascendant they don't just one hit kill you, but they completely render you useless for the rest of that wave because your friendlies can't revive you. An Outlaw Hydra, while it still one hit kills you, you can still be revived by your teammates. Or at least that was the case before update 1.6, 1.06, excuse me. So the big threats from the Ket, besides the Ascendant and the Fiend, which I will largely avoid, are the Destined and the Anointed, especially the Anointed. Ket Anointed can absolutely shred any character in the game because they just put out so much DPS. So those are not really the characters, not really the enemies you want to go after when they're in a group. Destined you can handle more so than Anointed, but they're simply more annoying because they have that cloaking effect and they can cloak nearby enemies as well. That's more of a nuisance than it is really a major problem. The Anointed, if you go after them when there's a group of enemies around them, with the Anointed and even just one or two Chosen shooting at you, you can get taken down very quickly, and you will see that going on in the later waves. In the first several waves, up to about halfway through wave 5, I think, or the start of wave 6, I was using my head a lot, and I was playing largely very smartly, just avoiding bad situations altogether, or minimizing them as much as possible, and not necessarily charging into a group of 4 or 5 guys that could just gun me down super quickly. I was using my head a heck of a lot more, trying to single out small groups of enemies, or just groups of enemies that I could kill very quickly with a combination of my powers and my melees. But you'll see later on, I just start to get a lot more cocky. I start to play a lot more stupid, basically, and I get downed a lot as a result of it. I think that starts about halfway through wave 5 or something like that. You'll see that happening later on. So that's basically what not to do. The first 4 waves in particular is kind of, what you do want to do, because I don't think there's a point where I go down in those first 4 waves. So you'll see a lot of that going on. The Ascendants largely get avoided. The Fiends largely get avoided, especially the Fiends, because of their, teleporting sometimes when you're off host, and their teleport sync kills in particular. So those largely get avoided for the most part, and other people playing better characters suited for taking down boss units. I leave the boss units to those players and those characters. So you'll see me going after mooks a hell of a lot. The Chosen and the Wraith, they get targeted a lot because those are your primary threats largely. And if you're facing off against Outlaws, the Adhees are a serious threat. They might not seem like it because they're so weak, but it's simply because they have that mechanic where they can grab you in their jaws and they hold you in place, and there's nothing you can do about it until you break free. That is what makes them so dangerous. And a character like the Human Vanguard, which relies so heavily on its mobility, that is an absolute killer. So you want to avoid that by killing Wraiths, Adhees, and basic enemies like Raiders and Ket Chosen and Remnant Assemblers and Breachers. You want to target those and take them out as quickly as possible. Once those are taken care of, you can take on lone or paired up Destined or Anointed or things like remnant observers and outlaw agents and stuff like that, even berserkers. So basically, the general gist is you want to take out the mooks first because they die faster. The faster they die, the less guns that are shooting at you in a shorter time span. And the less guns that are shooting at you, the more your shields will hold up. The less the saving barrier ability gets triggered. So it's less likely. It's just a lot less likely that you're going to die. Now that's basically what goes on for the first several waves here. For the most part, I don't always adhere to that. Sometimes I just get bloodthirsty and charge at a bad guy and start punching the crap out of them. So. You'll see some of that there going on there too. But you'll also notice that I don't have very strong consumables on because even a Ket Chosen, I have to charge it and then punch it twice before it dies. The first punch brings them down to just a tiny sliver of health. And that's the difference in the damage that you will do from your consumables that I was talking about earlier. So you want to make sure that you have at least grade 2 consumables on if you're going with the strength enhancer and the biotic damage booster for your consumables when you're using this loadout. If you have them both at grade 3, or heaven forbid you have both 1 or 2 at grade 4, you should be able to simply charge and then punch something like a Ket Chosen and kill it outright right there with a single charge and a single punch to the face. That should flat out kill something like a Ket Chosen or a Remnant Assembler or an Outlaw Raider. And that simply just saves you a lot of time, and in the long run, it just makes you killing things much more efficiently. It helps you clear the waves a lot faster. You'll see cases where I also go in on a group of bad guys. I don't necessarily charge first. There's a couple times where I run in and I Nova, and then I try to set off some combos by charging another bad guy who is primed from Nova, or by throwing a shockwave at them. You'll see that happening a few times, especially on the groups of enemies where there's 3 of them, 3 or more in particular. You definitely want to try and run in there, Nova first, prime several of them, and then throw out a shockwave to set off a detonation and deal more AoE damage, and then you can charge and regen any shields that you've lost and start punching things. So you'll see some of that going on as well. This character is just largely a lot of fun. It's a real joy and a real thrill to play. Melee characters in general, ever since I started experimenting with literally every class in the game in Mass Effect 3, trying to make a melee character out of every kit, I've had a lot of fun playing melee characters because it's just so entertaining with having all that extra mobility and being able to rush into a group of guys or on a single bad guy, dish out lots of damage very quickly, and then run away before things get really bad, and you're still leaving a few bodies behind. Just that quick rush in there, spend 5 seconds dishing out the pain, and then run the hell away. The only other characters that really come close to that kind of power are infiltrators, and that's because they have a certain class-related ability called Tactical Win, or Stealth Win. Sorry, that's Tactical Cloak and Stealth Cloak, or Stealth Grid. Yeah, that was a mistake in naming the powers wrong, totally. So infiltrators are really the only ones that can come close to that kind of power, or just general grenade spammers. Soldiers spamming frag grenade can be really powerful and have a similar level of power as a charging, punching Vanguard can. But, I mean, it's just a thrill using this mobility to its maximum effect, and, not necessarily relying on your personal mechanical skill, aiming for weak points with your gun, hitting enemies at just the right point, and, dishing out maximum damage because you were so precise. It's just a lot more fun being a lot less surgical about your precision and whatnot, and just kind of charging in there, tussling things up, and not really worrying so much about where you're aiming. Anyways, I will stop right there. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of this gameplay, and it gives you a good idea of how you can use the Human Vanguard build that I described in the previous video. As I said, if you want to go over the exact loadout for this character that I used in this gameplay video, the link to it will be in the description below. In the meantime, this has been Mobius Y. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you on the battlefield. Good luck, Apex.
Always got my back.
Just 3 hostiles remaining.
One straggler. Let's get him.
Enemies cleared. Stay alert.
Nice job.
Key enemy personnel were tracked to that location. Take them out.
Roger.
I'm reading a flatline.
Got
Teammate injured. Target down.
Lost my shield.
Squad member down.
Tracking a feed. Ascendant, watch out!
Target eliminated. Hang in there, Apex. Target's down. Squad member down. Just 3 hostiles remaining.
Nice save.
That hurt them. Be ready.
Good work.
Shuttle incoming. Get to the extraction zone.
Ascendant! Head down!
standing. Drinks are on me.